Wait, did you?
I did.
Okay.
Hopefully the audio might be switched on. We will see. We're ready. We are live. Awesome. Hi, everyone. I wonder if we can see the PowerPoint that we have.
All right.
Yes. There we are. There we are. Epic. Sarah, are you ready?
Yeah. Hi, guys.
Hell yeah. Hi, so welcome to the challenge workshop. So we will be beginning shortly.
Yeah. I think we're gonna wait for.
I think we'll wait another 2 minutes. We'll see, because the link just got posted on the Facebook. So if you guys have anyone that you would like to share this with, please send the link to them. We just like to get as many people watching. Hi, everyone in the chat. We will be answering any questions you have as well.
At the end of the workshop.
At the end, we'll have Q&A. Mm-hmm. Cool. Yep. Sarah, everyone is very excited to see you.
Hi, guys. Oh, there's some people from my school.
Oh, awesome. There's a few people from my school. Hi, everyone. How are you doing? All right, cool.
Okay.
Shall we get started?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Let's begin.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So let's just do an introduction. Sarah, would you like to begin?
With the format? Okay.
Yeah.
So very quickly, if you are a new scholar, these are like the basics of what the challenge is. It is a 120 question multiple choice test.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It will generally go from around 60 to 75 minutes. This depends on how difficult that they make the challenge, because at certain rounds, like Beijing, they made it like 75 minutes, I believe. And at my regional round, it was like 60 minutes. So it depends on the difficulty and what round you're at.
And then each, like the 120 questions will be 20 questions for each subject. So it will test your knowledge across the subject areas in two ways. The first is within a subject, which is like how well you know each of the case studies. And then the second is between the subjects, which is how well you know to link your knowledge across.
And we'll be touching on how you can study to nail this depth and breadth of the challenge later on.
Yep.
So yes, the basis of challenge prep and application. So in this seminar, we will be talking about these three topics. So first off, we'll be talking about researching. So we'll be talking about the most efficient ways you can look up information that you might need that will be useful according to the curriculum, and explaining how you can complete your notes at least a few weeks in advance to make sure you're as prepared as you can possibly be.
Okay. The second thing that we're going to be focusing on is revision, which is how you use the researched notes that you have created. So for regionals especially, focus on covering all subjects. We would argue that a general understanding across all 6 subjects is better than knowing one very comprehensively, but none of the rest.
Yeah, and then we'll also be teaching you how to apply and using your knowledge to score efficiently and highly within the challenge. So yes, let's begin on research.
Okay, so with research, first you have to know like which resources you can use. Tyler and I both believe that Wikipedia gets a bad rep.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, Wikipedia is it's underrated. It's better than you think, especially for Scholars Cup.
Yeah, because Wikipedia collects like a lot of information that is necessary, and even like maybe if it's not directly related, it's indirectly related. And if you don't think that the sources on there are reliable, you can easily just go to the bottom and access like the direct source for those like content.
Yeah.
And then there's
also,
yeah.
There's no, you continue with the last time.
There's also like Encyclopedia Britannica, which is really helpful if you want to look up maybe historical events and figures. And then YouTube videos. I really like infographics channels like Chris Gazat, because they are able to condense information in very like bite-sized packages that laymen can understand, so that you won't be weighed down by academic jargon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, impressive pronunciation. I can't ever get that out right. And then for additional insight and a way to get better sort of like opinions, because different people interpret things differently, you can look at different scholars' resources. So obviously look at the OnePwaa guides, a little bit of a plug there. Also check out Scholars of Australia, Advanced Alpaca Resources, and the Champion Scholar Initiative, because they all have amazing resources for you guys to get additional insight into the curriculum.
Now, this last one is maybe not so much related to the challenge as your wider area of study, because it's going to come into use for your debate and writing as well. But then you can access articles, opinion pieces to kind of gain a more nuanced understanding of a topic beyond what the guided cases present you with. And then lastly, for documentaries, if you're like really passionate about a subject, which I know that a lot of scholars probably won't be doing, but if you're really passionate about a certain figure or a certain subject, then you can check those out as well.
Mm-hmm. So there's different things to look for when you're actually studying, because the World Scholars Cup curriculum is super varied and wide, and it seems pretty daunting at first. So this is sort of like how to approach the curriculum and the most efficient ways to look for certain things. So first of all, you want to look for a definition if there's like a certain term. So you want to look for like the meaning of the term and the reasoning of it, and you want to try and understand the link that the term and definition actually have within the year's curriculum and the theme of the year, which is always something to look for, right? So you want to look for how it might relate this year. When the rounds start back, you might want to relate to the world renewed. So, right? So there's certain things to look for there.
For connotations, this is not applicable to every key term or concept, but if maybe the term is typically used as a pejorative or it's used as a way to praise something, that's something that you want to take note of as well.
Yeah. And then you also want to look at the origin. So you want to see about like, okay, so you want to look at sort of like why something has occurred. You want to look at maybe key dates and stuff like that, right? So you want to look at the context and the origins behind a concept or term to try and gain a better and deeper understanding into why the term is relevant.
So for synonyms or related terms, what you'll be doing is you'll be seeing if that term or that model has another name that it's known by, or maybe if there is a related concept that is linked to it. And we will give you an example in the next slide.
Yeah. So this example is a Freudian slip. This is from the special area curriculum this year. So the definition of a Freudian slip is a verbal error which reveals subconscious feelings. So this kind of relates to this year's well, obviously relates to the subject of mistakes and recoveries, as an error is a type of mistake.
So the origins, we know that it's named after Sigmund Freud, founder of psychotherapy, and then you will fill in the rest, like why his background is relevant to this term and what he researched with regard to this term.
Yeah, and then you can look at synonyms and related terms. For this one, it might not be as useful. There's that word there, which I'm not going to even approach pronouncing. Thanks, Sarah. Parapraxis and priming, which might be a little bit more useful to see if anything like that, because sometimes they can trick you within the challenge by bringing up alternative terminology for the curriculum to try and see if you've got that deeper understanding of what's actually going on.
Yeah. And then the last thing is that for every term or concept, it's best if you are familiar enough with it to be able to like construct an example of where it's used. So in the challenge, for example, they're often going to present you with a scenario and they're going to ask you, this is an example of ... And then, so this is an example of what the Freudian slip is. And then you're going to want to be able to link that back.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So we're going to talk for what to look for within art and literature selections, because these ones are slightly different to the rest of the curriculum, as they can be a little bit more subjective. So you generally want to talk about the actual selection itself, and you want to talk about the medium, whether it's presented as a painting, a photo, a story, a poem, a play, a movie, whatever. And you want to understand the significance of the medium that it's presented in and why that medium might have been chosen, like what that shows.
With regards to the creator, it's not enough to just know like who they are. You also have to do a little bit of research into their background. Like, are they informed by some variety of politics? Did they practice in a certain style or movement, and were they a significant figure in that movement?
Yeah, and then you want to look at the time period of the selection. You want to understand the context behind why the selection was created, or if it marked a significant moment in the creator's life, to see if there was something that might be relevant within an event in the creator's life that might be relevant to the curriculum, and that might be the link there.
Yeah. And for meaning, there are two ways that you can approach meaning. In fact, two ways that you should approach meaning. The first is what did the creator intend to say? Like, what message did they intend to convey with creating this? And does this line up with how people interpreted it in the future?
And you also want to look for related works. This might be something that's probably secondary to the rest of the research we have here, but you might want to look at whether it's part of a collection or a series to see if there's any similar pieces or pieces that might relate to the curriculum as well. This can especially be useful within the writing event, as it demonstrates a deep knowledge of the curriculum if you can link to related works and pieces from artists and people within the curriculum.
Yeah. Okay,
So we'll
so
be running.
yeah. The example that we chose is The Last Supper by Julie Green. And here is a quick description of the selection itself. It is a depiction of the last meals eaten by convicts on death row, and the medium, it is a painting on ceramic plates.
Evidently, it was created by Julie L. Green, who was born in 1961 and is still alive today.
That's okay. So the time period is all right. It's an ongoing series in that she's still doing almost one a day sometimes, but she makes up generally to 50 a year.
Mm-hmm. And it has a meaning about a protest against the death penalty and a statement on how little the public knows who convicts are as people. So Green obviously has this mentality of she's anti-death penalty. So this series is part of protesting against the death penalty until it's finally abolished.
Mm-hmm. All right, so the next kind of content that we'll be focusing on how to research for will be historical events. So your first focus will obviously be the event itself. Like, see if you can summarize it very concisely. What happened and why was it significant?
Yeah, and then you also want to look at significant figures. So you want to look at the people who were involved in the event and who might have gained or lost something as a result of the event. Because you can look at different ways you can interpret different historical events from different perspectives from that.
The time period has not just to do with like the exact time that it occurred, but also like whether or not it was something that was building up over a long time, or was it like a flash event that it happened very quickly because of one single reason.
And then you want to look at the conclusion of the event. You want to see how it ended and why it ended the way it did, to see if there was any sort of significant people there or significant events that led up to the way that it ended.
The consequences are distinct from the conclusion in that consequences also have bearing on, the modern day, what happened as a result of the event ending the way that it did, and would this have happened if it had ended a different way.
So this will look at an example, which is the business plot in 1933. So this event was a political conspiracy led by American business leaders to overthrow the president at the time of the United States, Franklin D. Roosevelt.
So key figures in it, well, some of the accused include financiers like J.P. Morgan, but the main testifier was Smedley Butler.
Yeah, and this occurred within the time period of FDR's election upset, which many conservative businessmen, as he had, his election, which upset many. Reading is hard. His election, which upset many conservative businessmen, as he had promised to provide jobs for the unemployment on the campaign trail.
Yeah. So the conclusion was that nobody was prosecuted, and some historians disagree on whether or not it was a legitimate conspiracy. Now, the consequences for this are a bit more nebulous and hard to define. So once again, like these points, they're not applicable to every case. It's just like as you see fit.
Mm-hmm. Now we'll be talking about how you can research efficiently. So dividing your labor is something that's super important, and I have found very effective in the past. So between the teammates, you want to try and split your 6 subjects so that each person has to only create, only person has to only focus on creating a complete set of notes for 2 to 3 subjects. So generally, what I have done in past, like last year at my research round, me and my teammates, we each took 2 subjects and created PowerPoints for each other that we would then present at the end of the week.
Yeah, it's important to also like note that while you are only focusing on creating guides for 2 to 3 subjects, it's also important to familiarize yourself with the rest. Like make sure that your teammates know what you're doing and you know what your teammates are doing. So the next point is to utilize existing scholarly resources, which we listed earlier, because it really helps to have that as a starting point or even to supplement what notes you already have.
Mm-hmm. And then you want to try and collaborate with other teams, whether that might be within your delegation or people that you've met online through certain events. but you want to try and create massive study guides and amass information together, because the more perspectives and the more information you can get, the better it is for your knowledge of the curriculum, because they can really test you on anything. It's super open-ended.
Mhm. Okay, so the next bit is, now that you know what you have to do, how do you research effectively? Now, this first thing is very important, is that you have to link your notes together. And you can do this by asking yourself questions which bridge across the subjects. And then examples of questions in the challenge that are in this area include, like, what did this artist and this author have in common? And this can be anything from like political beliefs and their background, their cultural background, whether or not they are both women and stuff like that. Which events happened in the same year, which is my least favorite kind of question because I'm so bad with dates. And then
Yeah.
which theories were made by the same person.
And one thing to note down is to not get bogged down by unnecessary details. Because of the largeness, that's a word, of the curriculum, you want to just be careful about what information you take down, and you want to only take down the most relevant and pertinent points of the information so you can make sure your study is most efficient. Because if you focus on getting every single key date, every single key person, it's going to take way too long, and chances are you're not going to be able to efficiently learn and remember all of that information effectively.
I will say though that in the context of this, it's also important to remember that really specific details you probably should remember. Like,
Yeah.
I remember a couple of years ago we were studying the cube houses in Rotterdam, and they were all tilted at like a specific angle, and I thought, that's probably not important. But then it was like the first question I saw in arts and music that year. So
Yeah.
yeah, if a detail is like really specific, you probably want to take that down.
Yeah. But just make sure the details that you're taking down might be relevant and you can link it in some way. That's the
Yeah.
best way to try and discern it. All right, so now we'll be talking about revision.
Okay. So different strategies for revision. Now, we hold that there's like no one right way to do it. Like, Tyler and I have different methods, and everyone else also has different methods which work for them. So you can try out different ones and see which work for you. My friend Rishika, she handwrites all her notes, which is ridiculous and time consuming, but it really, really works for her because her challenge scores were so good in the past. So maybe if you're one of those people who remember things better, if you write them down, then that would work for you.
Yeah. Some people come up with mnemonics like puns or acronyms to try and help them just like jog their memory when they see certain things, to just sort of try and find terms that they can associate. And you can even do like groups of stuff, right? So you know how there's like subsections in each subject of the curriculum. You can try and come up with certain mnemonics to remember certain terms and concepts within that.
Right. Other scholars also use flashcards, which are really great with like instant memorization of like definitions and stuff.
Mhm. And some scholars use interactive websites like Quizlet and Kahoot. And my teammate Jack Bailey has proven this over and over again to be super effective, as his challenge scores are always very high using purely Quizlet, which is very impressive.
So here are some ideas to personalize your revision beyond like the normal stuff. The first is to create a practice challenge. Now, you don't have to create it like super big, 120 questions. You can start small and then try to work out from the questions that you have experience with what you might be asked in the curriculum. And then you can look at examples of this in our practice challenge at the end of this workshop. So after you've created this, you can get your teammates to complete it. You can do challenges created by them, and then you guys can come together and review which subjects that you need to brush up on.
Yeah, and you want to find just the most interesting ways that work for you to just figure out and internalize your information. So this might be in the form of anything that we've listed before: puns, acronyms, or just a study where you rejoin all the facts together, or you might just be writing it down. You want to keep it simple, but make sure it works for you and make it memorable.
So here is some advice for us for our revision. The first thing is to keep revisiting old material, even the stuff that you're sure you know by heart, because of the nature of information is that the more you revisit it and over a longer period of time, you're going to be able to internalize it better. And this method is known as spaced retrieval. It's going to help you better remember certain concepts.
You want to try and make a study schedule because of the nature of the World Scholars Cup curriculum. You want to try and be able to make it work with your schoolwork, because I know a lot of scholars are generally very busy people. So you want to try and figure out how you can most efficiently study it and work that into your schoolwork, whether that be making sure you do like half an hour a day or an hour a day, whatever you can fit in. But if you can keep that consistent, that's the most important thing. And also make sure you don't lose track of your schoolwork and other responsibilities, because it's imbalance is like super important with studying.
Mm-hmm. The last thing is to avoid cramming at the last minute. And I know that this sounds, I know that a lot of scholars don't take this advice, and there are scholars who score really highly in the challenge, even though they literally read nothing until like the night before the challenge itself.
Mhm.
And it works for them, but it's not going to work for everybody. So unless you're like super confident you can fit all 6 subjects in your head the night before the challenge, the general rule of thumb is just to get ready as soon as possible, as early as possible, and to avoid like having to cram at the very last minute.
Yeah, the curriculum generally gets released in January. So, and that's also a lot of people when they have a break or something or other from school. So it's also good to try and get your study started as soon as possible, because that might get you a head start on other people. So now we're going to talk about application of your skills you have learned and the information you have learned. Yes. So we've got, yeah.
Okay, so 3 tips for application that we're going to cover across this section. The first is to apply what you know. The second is to use cross-elimination. And the third is rather self-explanatory. It's don't leave any questions blank.
Right, so we've got a sample question here. So the sample question is something that you might see in a challenge. So this is what they generally look like. So someone who just bought a new dress, is most vulnerable to A, the bandwagon effect, B, the Diderot effect, C, semantic drift, D, planned obsolescence, or E, retconning. And we're going to talk about how you can interpret this question.
Okay, so the first tip is to apply what you know. What you want to do first is you want to identify important information that will help you answer the question. So in this question specifically, it's just bought a new dress. So what you want to do is now you want to link this information with what you know. And if you study, you might know that the Diderot effect describes how obtaining one new material possession can lead you to want to obtain others. So if you're familiar with this concept already, given that you studied, which I hope you have, then you should be able to make this link easily. Therefore, B is the most suitable answer.
And that would be correct. So the second tip is cross-elimination. So generally, if you don't know the answer to a question, which can happen, you want to single out the one which is least likely to be the answer. For example, you may know that the bandwagon effect describes how people tend to embrace ideas or media that is already popular, so following the crowd. So therefore, the most important information is the new dress, which is unrelated to the concept of popular idea or media. Therefore, A, the bandwagon effect will not be the answer.
Right. So you don't want to include it in your final answer.
Yeah.
So the third tip is, again, pretty self-explanatory. In the challenge, it's really important that you never leave a question blank. If you're running out of time, at least try to shade all the bubbles in the questions that you left blank, because you'll automatically get a fifth of the mark for shading all 5 bubbles, as opposed to 0 if you leave one blank.
Yeah. Even though this might not seem like a lot, the margin between challenge rankings can sometimes be very slim, as Sarah and I know, because she edged me out in special area rankings by like half a mark at TSU last year.
Oh man, and it can also make the difference between like a medal or no medal.
Yeah. And
So
if you really don't know the answer, you don't want to try and get held up on the ones that might not be the answer. Either color in all the bubbles, or actually, statistically, it may be more likely that you'll get it correct if you shade in 1 or 2 bubbles. But you know, that's your own. You can hedge your bets on doing that or not. It generally is safer to do all of them. But if you're really confident in your guesswork, you can just fill in one.
Right. Okay. So to summarize this workshop so far, the first thing we talked about was research. And what you want to do is find a variety of resources that work for you and compile them in the way that is most effective and inducive to your future revision.
Yeah. So you want to identify important information within the question. Oh, wait, hang on. Wait, you just did the first one, right? Yeah, no, skip the second. Nice. So you want to try different revision methods and see what works best for you, because there's lots of different ways to revise, and everyone interprets and learns things differently. So you want to find what works for you. And the best way to do that is just try and test out different things and just find what works.
And also to work with other people so that you know what works for them and you can try that out together. So the third thing finally is in application, you want to identify important information in the question, and then you want to utilize the 3 things that we mentioned, which is applying what you know by making the appropriate links, and then to cross-eliminate when you don't know the answer, and also to just not leave a question blank.
Yeah. So we will, I apologize. We will now be doing Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, we will be reading the YouTube chat. We understand there's a bit of a delay, but yeah, we'll be reading the chat. If you guys have absolutely any questions, we will be answering them now. So yes, we will just wait for this to pop up on the actual YouTube stream. Obviously, there's going to be a bit of delay, so we're going to have to account for that. So yeah, it just came up.
I'm not going to be able to look at my own face after.
Yeah, these images. Design team, if you're watching, we apologize.
Yeah, no, we don't. No,
we don't. No apologies. It is what it is. Someone just said question in the chat. Thank you. That's a good question.
How should I?
Oh, okay, we got questions. Okay, how should you research Henry V? Okay, Henry V. I believe that might have been in the literature section, and because there was quite a few poems based around the events of Henry V. So you might want to, again, you would look at Henry V himself. You might want to look at the author of the poems, and then you might want to look at the actual concepts around them that link to the curriculum this year. Okay, we've got lots of questions coming in. All right, cool. Sarah, you take one.
Okay, where can you find the quiz code? We will have this literally right in the next slide, and then you can go to our quiz is. And take note that it's not actually like a full challenge. It's like 30 minutes long. It won't be like 120 questions.
Yeah. How are your photoshopping skills so good? I don't know. Natural born talent.
Yeah. Okay, wait.
I'm really good at answering bowl questions, but I suck at the challenge. Is there a reason? Should I try something different? Okay, so bowl and challenge are two very kind of similar events, but the main difference is in bowl, you've got your teammates to talk to, right? But generally for challenge, yeah, it's based on practice, right? So the more practice you do with more different questions, that generally has helped me in the past to improve my own challenge rankings. But you might have to experiment and find something else that works for you.
Yeah. Actually, I'm the opposite. I'm better at the challenge than the bowl. I think it's that you're probably better at responding to media on the spot as opposed to like making the links like on a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
So if you colored all of the bubbles on every question, approximately how well would you do?
Badly, pretty badly.
Yeah, badly.
You would get 1/5 of all the marks, which is not going to get you any medals. I would not recommend doing
full marks? Like 3. Wait.
Sorry.
What's like the full marks that you could possibly get? That's like.
It's 120 for like all the marks. So if you get a bit of
that,
yeah, don't color all the bubbles. If you have a question where you've shaded 2 bubbles and you think one bubble is more likely, would you recommend choosing 1 bubble?
Yes.
Given my own experience, generally speaking, if you're guessing between 2, statistically, it's going to pay off better if you just choose one of them.
YOLO it.
YOLO.
What if you tend to forget everything in the challenge when you are under pressure? This might be more about like timed events than the challenge itself. And I would say that the only way to deal with this is to really just do more of timed events. Like the practice challenge I mentioned earlier will probably help.
Yeah. Okay. How do you have the mental capacity for all the subjects? That is a serious question. Thank you, Jacob. Yeah, okay. So it just mainly for me, because I would not be able to cram all the night before because my brain would not be able to take that. For me, the best way to do it is to start as early as possible and to space it out efficiently so I know I can actively recall. And generally something else that I do to try and practice my knowledge of the information is I would just like link it in within school, which can seem annoying to teachers, but like for me, it helps to like link that to my school content, or if I'm talking to my family or having a political discussion or something like that, just finding ways to bring it up. That's something that has always helped me with revising.
Definitely. Like even in school when they're like, oh, free presentation, I'm going to definitely do something about WSC.
Yep. Should you rely on... Yeah, we got the same question. Yeah.
No.
No.
Like wait, like scholars resources?
I think that's what they're talking about, yeah.
Don't. It's good to use them as supplementary to your information, but it's not good generally to just rely on a guide created by someone else because again, it's not personalized and you're going to have a harder time like internalizing that information.
Yeah. So yeah, generally you want to use study guides as like a secondary resource. So you want to do your own research first, and then generally for me, if I can't find a certain term or if I can't find information that is like clicking with me, then I might go just look at the study guides. Can we research during the quiz? You can. Oh, the one that we're running today? No, please don't. It's not going to be helpful. The best way to, yeah, you want to be honest because that's the best way to understand how you're doing.
Okay. My teammates for TOC literally do nothing. Any advice?
That's a great question. Thank you, Julia.
Well, I don't know, Tyler.
If your teammates aren't doing anything, okay, your challenge results on your own will not be affected by your teammates. So do your best as you can and try and be as encouraging as possible. And if need be, stage an intervention and try and get them to study. But there's nothing much you can really do there. Where will the code be displayed? Oh, sorry?
No. The code will be displayed in the next slide. What do you do if you have a full-on mental breakdown? Like in the challenge or leading up to it? Because if it's leading up to it, you should really like chill. But in the challenge itself, also chill.
Yeah. Oh, what's the full score on the challenge? Okay, the way Scholars Cup like sort of weights events is out of your entire points per round, add up to 10,000, and out of that 10,000, challenge accounts for 3,000 of the points, but they're scaled upwards. Your actual mark will be out of 120, and they scale it up.
How do you guys manage your time? Yeah.
My sleep schedule is something that I try not to talk about too much, but that's how. Yes, but like generally balance is like super important for me. So taking time to do things that also make you happy is super important, and it will make you more motivated to learn.
Mm-hmm. Should you constantly be re-updating your notes or sheets? Yeah, you should be. Like after every round, I try not to ever let my notes get static in the sense that I never amend them because especially if you're dealing with like current events, there are a lot of developments that you definitely want to take note of.
Yeah. What subject generally takes the most time for research? For me, it's history because I am really bad at remembering lots of dates and lots of key figures. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Last minute cramming tips. Okay, last minute cramming tips. Last year, I didn't study literature till the night before because I was kind of inefficient. So for what I did, I just crammed with a resource guide, I believe. But yeah, generally try and avoid that situation in entirety. But if you need to, generally for then, that's maybe one of the situations you would use a resource guide because at that point, you know, the information's all there. You don't have to waste time because it's a time crunch, right? So you want to try and use your time as efficiently as possible. And the best way to do that is just find somewhere with all the information. And even if you just get one perspective, if you can just read through that over and over, that might help you a little bit. But, you know, yeah.
Something I did when back in like 2017 when I hadn't touched a certain subject was I literally didn't even click into the guided cases. I just read through like the curriculum listed on the page, and a lot of the times the guided cases are already laid out to tell you what they're about.
Do you find timelines helpful for history and art? I can find them helpful for history, not so much for art, but like that generally depends on the context of the question or the concept of the term, right? Yeah.
Someone called me the squib. Yeah. Okay.
Nice.
Do you have any tips on surviving with a disastrous sleep schedule filled with the stress and anxiety of challenges? Oh God, man.
I ghost wrote it again.
Yeah, no, like that is something that you probably will get better at managing over time because
It just comes to practice.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you manage school and prep for college entrances along with Scholars Cup? Balance and trying to create schedules as well as making time for family and friends because the more connected you feel with the people around you, generally the more motivated you will be with your study. And that kind of links into Xavier's question that you said there. How do you recommend managing your time when doing? Oh wait, I thought you said when preparing for a challenge.
Like when doing the challenge. I know people who actually start with sections that they're more familiar with first, but for me that's a bit confusing. So I'll probably just go from the beginning. If I meet a difficult question, I'll like come back to it later.
Yeah, what I generally do is what I have done in the past is I've read through the entire challenge before I did this at Beijing. I read through the entire challenge before I even began, and I realized I was halfway through the entire time, so I entirely ran out of time in Beijing, which is why my results were kind of bad. But like during the challenge, yeah, the best thing to do for me is just work chronologically and asterisk any questions I don't know the answer to, so I can come back to them at the end.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Should
Should you
you
study?
study?
Enjoy it. Enjoy it. For me, enjoy it is so much more beneficial because most of the time you probably won't benefit too much from that last minute study, and the actual experience of a Scholars Cup round is so much more worth it that you should just try and be there in the moment. So,
How do you know someone won't interrupt? Wait, what is this in reference to? Interrupt you
you
where?
in the challenge, generally that doesn't happen. It's the room is
They're not
entirely quiet.
allowed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you sometimes worry about cheaters next to you on the challenge? Not really. I think most of the people in Scholars Cup are pretty honest, but they do have the Scholars Cup themselves. They do have systems in place to stop people from cheating as well.
Yeah. You can just tell the proctor if you think someone is like acting suspiciously.
Yeah, which is normally the hardest section of the challenge. That depends on your own research,
Yeah.
generally speaking.
But also
Because
varies like season from season, I would say.
oh, absolutely, yeah, I agree with you. Science was impossible last year. That was just because I didn't really like the subject that much. How many prizes or medals are available for each category? Okay, so for the challenge, it's broken down in that there's you can either win a silver or gold medal depending on the percentage of people that you place within, the percentile that you place within. So yes, so there's gold or silver medals available for each of the 6 subjects, and then they also give out medals if you rank first in a subject, and then there is a prize called the Asimov Award if you win you top the entire challenge.
Okay. Do you, do you think tear stains on the challenge page will get you more marks?
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a great question.
I wish, but no.
Yeah. Cool. I think we'll be taking a few more questions and then we'll probably be moving
Yeah.
on to doing the quizzes. But
Yeah.
yes. Do you chew gum during the challenge? I do not. How to Asimov ask Sarah.
I don't know. Be really great at guessing.
Yeah, we're professional guesses.
Yeah.
I'll steal research from you. Yeah. But yes.
Okay.
But generally speaking, the more work you put into doing the challenge, the best you'll do. Yeah. Cool.
All
All
right.
right, Sarah. I think we should probably wrap up the Q&A.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. So
Thanks.
we will thank you guys so much. These were such awesome questions. Oh, is there any more? Oh, how many questions are you? We'll do 3 more, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, how many questions are you allowed to get wrong for a subject if you're shooting to get top score? Oh, as a rule, okay. I think as a rule, if you're getting
None.
yeah, if you're shooting for top, try and get none. I've never topped a subject. I came second in I think 5 subjects at my regional round though, and I think I got about 16 or 17 out of 20, and that's where you might want to be aiming for.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, yeah. But
Uh,
is there a time limit? Yes, the time, which is either 60 to somewhere between 60 to 75 minutes. So,
okay, they're asking about the challenge code, so yeah,
oh,
let me.
okay, yeah, we'll move on. Cool. Thank you guys so much. All right. So here you can see on this slide that has just popped up, we have the challenge code on quizzes.com. So you want to go to joinmyquiz.com and enter the code below. And also make sure you have made a quizzes account. And we will close the challenge June 22nd at 12 a.m. for GMT plus 0. So make sure you please complete it by then. And Sarah, do you know if they'll be able to see the results?
I
I believe so.
think yeah, they might.
I
They
believe so.
probably.
Cool. We will leave this up here while everyone goes to the join my quiz. Yeah.